Yeah. Yeah, what a day too. We picked the 20th.
Let's see. I
Which is
messaged Morgan. I was like, do we still want to do this today? Because I haven't looked at mainstream media in, well, 15 years. But
yeah.
I mean, yeah, today is not a day for
Oh, I think
tuning
it's good.
in.
I think it's good. I think that we'll get plenty of people.
Yeah.
Let me get my reading glasses on so I can see and verify that. Yeah, we've got some people coming in.
Hi, people coming in.
So we're gonna get started in a minute. Just allow people a little bit more time to come in. I'm gonna play our quick intro. We'll be right back. I'm drinking this coffee as fast as I can. Trying to get there.
Do what you gotta do.
I wish it was back in the old days and I could just find some of that old white powder. I'm gonna get in trouble this morning because I have no filter this morning. We've got a beautiful, beloved, brave sister on. I hadn't never met her before, but when I saw her face, I was like, "Oh, I know you." I don't know why that is, but it'll come to me a little bit later. And her name is Trish Causey, and we're gonna get to know her in typical Soulogy fashion, just spontaneously, intuitively, imaginatively, creatively, and depending on what we're talking about, which is this is going to be a deep subject, courageously. But I just saw in typical, this is normal. Somebody I got a show with arranged through Morgan, which is the way we work, by the way. Hint, hint. So if you send me a message from April of 2020 and I didn't see it, don't get upset. And this beautiful lady didn't. But I'm going to read a little bit of her message because it describes a little bit about her. Let's see here. I'd like to discuss my work as a sacred sex shaman. So you know Todd's going to have a great show with this subject. Bringing love, healing, and consciousness to intimate relationships. I am a twin flame. So you're a twin flame. You got a partner. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And I'm on a soul mission to help survivors heal from sexual trauma, and I think that's a huge subject because one way or the other, everybody has been sexually traumatized, directly and indirectly. And she also helps people realize bliss and love are their true birthright.
Yes.
And then she said, "Thank you." That was April 16, 2020. I'm very sorry about that. Anybody that sends me a note, anybody that sends me a note and I don't answer very quickly, you can send it to Morgan. You can send it to SoulogyOneStudios@gmail.com. You can send it to SoulogyNetwork.com. There's a thing there, and get in line because there's a whole bunch of them I have to go find. Yeah, this is great. Sacred sexuality. I think that a lot of that's, because of the connotation with the word sexuality. It's I think kind of misunderstood. Of course, I get Morgan's been downloading that subject among others, sacred union, sacred sexuality, Harriet Scammos, ascension, for about 20 years. So I met her, over 5 years ago, and it's that's been a part of what I've learned, with her, or remembered with her. But my point is that the sacred sexual vibration or energy or frequencies, it applies to everything. It's like a creativity. And I imagine they're tied together somehow. I'd like to hear what you have to say. But first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you for sharing space. Thank you for honoring us with your presence. And it's good to have you here. I'm glad that we worked this out.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate this. I greatly appreciate all the work that you do. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, just doing a show even once a week is exhausting in scheduling, and then you do so many. So I'm just from even the professional aspect of things of doing what you do, not to mention, of course, the spiritual.
Thank you. It's nice to hear, especially on mornings where you're barely making it. Of course, it is 1:23 in the afternoon. I'm 20 minutes late for this show.
There is no time. We're good. There is no time.
I know. You're right. We were just talking about that beforehand. But, I think, I want to get to the subjects at hand, but, I think everybody is. I see proof of people, in my own, machinations every day, like, answering messages, and, I don't schedule too much, but the flow of all that. But I'm seeing like a change since middle of last year, where people are they're not getting upset if I don't answer a message. They're not working on a schedule. You hear a lot of people say, look, I was supposed to call a guy 2 days ago. Like, he hit me up earlier in the day. I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm busy, but I'll call you in 2 hours. And I never did. And the next day I'm doing a show, and he's hosting it out of his studio with Gabriella Young. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. And he's like, divine timing, man. Don't worry. So there's a lot more comfortability, I guess. Is that a word?
Yes, which is not my background. I'm going to tell you right now, that is not my background, because my background is in the performing arts, as a performer, as a composer and a writer, and then as a production stage manager, which means I held the stopwatch, which means I held all power in the production. And so to go from that existence where your entire waking hours, and even your sleeping, because your sleeping gets interrupted by an alarm, that your everything is scheduled, everything is timed. The only thing that I really put on my schedule right now is me time. Yeah. Everything else is secondary, even clients.
Well, that's the way I look at it. I started looking at the show because I used to freak out, but after 2,500 shows, you learn a few things. And one of the things I learned last year was I used to freak out if I was running late. And I do have the ability to jump in here, snap, 5 minutes. I woke up, take a couple of shots of coffee, wash my face, and I put on a nice shirt. Thank God they can't see me from the waist down.
Right.
But, I don't mean it that way, but it's my pajamas or whatever.
Well, in my work, I would mean it that way.
Right. I have
Be
been
free.
Right.
It's actually better for your testicles and your prostate, but whatever.
What? Wait a minute. We're going to go back to that. Let me write that down. I heard that word, prostate. Okay.
Very important for men and women, but anyway.
Is it really for women too?
Well, the female prostate is in the vagina. It's on the anterior wall of the vagina. Home to the G spot. Yeah.
I'm familiar. This is going to be a great show. We're going to have to go a little bit longer than an hour if you're okay with that.
I'm totally good with that.
Okay. So, we were talking about that, the scheduling thing. Oh, yeah, the me time. Like, yes. I think that's a really good point, because that's something I think that's happened in the last few months. Is me time isn't really like even put on the schedule. It's just the whole schedule's me time, right? Yes. And then you schedule according to the me time, how you can acclimate it with the me time. And that's really important. Yeah. So like what would happen to me is I would start to freak out a little bit, as much as I can. And then I started to go, wait a minute, do you want to run in there and jump in the chair and be, discombobulated, a few degrees, or do you want to take an extra 5 or 10 minutes and get your shift together and, do some breathing exercises or whatever it is that, comes up. And so, and in a way, that's me time too, because it's like saying, you know what, I got to be at my best. And again,
Well,
these
it's
are
honoring your sacral, first of all. It's honoring your sacral rather than honoring the ego and the mind where you have been conditioned. You have to be at work at a certain time. In fact, be early. And in theater, it's if you're on time, you're late. If you're early, you're on time. And if you're on time, you're late. And so it's about allowing all of these restrictions on our personal, this is our personal time, this is our personal life, right? And allowing all of that does not serve us to fall away. And so you're honoring your sacral.
Yeah.
And I see the guitar behind you, so I know we're good. We're fine.
So, but no, this is what I was talking about with the sacred sexuality being applicable, whether we know it or not, conscious or not, it's applicable to every moment of our lives. And what I was going to try to get you to elaborate on that, but you just actually led right into it. And what I'm talking about, of course, it's easy if I sit down, last night I sat down, a friend of mine made some incredible beats, like ambient type beats, with a nice beat behind it, hip hop beat behind it.
Yes.
And so I turned it on and I started writing. I hope I didn't lose it. But so when you're in that creative mode, it's, I think, a lot easier to relate, or for me to explain to someone, okay, you know what? That's the sacral. That's sacred sexuality. You're taking that energy and you're infusing it into an inspiration and a creation. That's the shift. That's it, right? But then if you look at, just like, say I get out of here and I go up to the store and I meet somebody that I'm talking to a lawnmower about, at the Lowe's or whatever, there's a certain inflection, right? That I've noticed, like when I'm in my groove or when I observe other people, there's a certain inflection. There's like a bounce, almost like, as an example, as a metaphor, would be like Elvis. I'm not saying, but you know how he has that inflection in his voice. So if you ever go down to Louisiana,
I'm in Mississippi, and boy, do we know Elvis because he's from Mississippi. Yeah.
So
yeah, New Orleans. Yeah, that's just like an hour away.
Are you up in Jackson? Where are you at there, Jackson?
Oh, I'm in Ocean Springs, beautiful Mississippi Gulf Coast. We've got woods, we've got beaches, we've got bayous and alligators and birds, and it's just beautiful. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about heading down to the coast, to the Gulf Coast for.
Wait, where are you? Where are you?
We're in Van Buren, Arkansas, right outside of Fort Smith. So we're about.
Come down, go through Memphis, or you go through Houston?
No, we wouldn't go through Houston. We're north.
Okay, go down. Yeah, so you're gonna go down to Houston and then just hang a left onto I-10, and you're about 6 hours or 4 hours the way I drive.
Yeah, we're probably about 6 hours from you, from where we're at.
Oh my gosh! If you come down here, you got to come over.
So you get, we'll talk about that. So you get it. So now we're really gonna have a great conversation because we got a sex professional, sacred.
Hey now.
From Mississippi,
yes,
which is kind of cool. But yeah, so that sacred sexual vibration parlays into, to me, it does. I mean, into everything. Like I don't know how to explain it, but it's.
Well, the way I have it, I have a modality. I call it tantric fire magic, and it is love, sex, money, alchemy, and it's connecting the dots between love, the emotional side, and then the physical side, which would be the sex part, and then money, and how all of these dots are connected, or can be, if you're on fire to that, and you allow that expansion, which is the tantric part, that all of this goes to self-worth, self-value, self-acceptance, and self-love, and all of that goes to your birthrights of unconditional love, your birthright of financial abundance in the physical. And it's understanding that, you get to have all this. Yeah. So then the journey is, okay, what do I need to heal, clear, learn to love about myself and my journey so that I can manifest all this in the physical. Yeah.
Well, I think, for me, just looking at everything, so the sexual power is, like, in the physical form, our biggest, representation of our energetic, you know what I mean? But at the same time, which has been, I think everybody's been affected, has been the suppression of it. the taboo, the don't do that, and don't do
Yeah.
that, or you're gonna get hair on your hands, or whatever the different old wives tale are. So I think there's been, we can talk a lot about the different narratives of how all this went down. You talk about from the Nephilim to the Anunnaki to the this to that. But if we look at the mechanics of how the Matrix was set up, to me, and you tell me. I mean, as far as I know, 3 out of 4 hits on the internet are still porn. Okay, so there's been this suppression of that energy, this distancing from that energy, this encouragement not to go there. And if you do, close the door, don't let anybody see, kind of thing. And it's bad and dirty. So there's been this. So I think, like, to get in touch with that, to straighten out our sexual trauma or distortions within our field, I would think would be the first step. But you're the expert, so you tell me, how does somebody identify what their sexual power is, where it's been spent or how it's being utilized, and then converting that to, what'd you say? Oh, I had it, sex, drugs, rock and roll, and money. No, but how do you convert that to
It depends on where the perspective still is. If they're mostly a 3D perspective, then they are probably still watching the porn. And I would love to talk about porn, because I do. There's a difference. I don't like porn. I love erotica. And there is a difference, and there's an energetic difference, and there's a very big difference in the money behind those industries. Mainly porn is a lot bigger. Oh, that sounded bad. That wasn't a joke. Anyway, so yeah, this is the way these conversations go. But if you're still approaching sex and sexuality from a 3D perspective, first of all, you're probably still in wounding of some kind, because sexual abuse is one of the most pervasive abuses that exists. Whether it's molestation, rape, or in the United States and other American influenced countries and certain religions, circumcision. So circumcision is the first and usually the most pervasive form of sexual assault of males in our culture. And then it goes up from there, sexual mutilation of genitals in other cultures for girls and boys. And then there's, again, the molestation, incest, rape, etc., or even just sexual assault where there's no penetration. And I've certainly experienced that a lot too. I mean, I've been molested as a child, raped at 21 when I was a virgin, etc. So if you're still approaching this, say you're new to the awakening, because there are a lot of people waking up right now. If you're new to all of this, then you're probably still approaching sex from the 3D perspective. Maybe you realize that your relationships tend to have these same patterns of dissatisfaction or abuse, or maybe your addictive behaviors, or you're finally seeing patterns in all of that. All of that comes from your lack of sovereignty. And so as you're waking up and you start to come into your own, you are a sovereign being. This is a free will universe. Claim your sovereignty, claim your power. And your power here in the physical is Shakti, or physical and energetic is Shakti, because the word Shakti means power, right? And that's the Kundalini force. That's the part of the sexual force, but it's your life force. See, I have a very strong life force, and men mistook that as sexual energy. And then they, because of the way men have been taught to, go for what they want and don't take no for an answer. When women say no, men have still gone forward with things that actually violated our sovereignty, simply because that's the cultural conditioning, anyway. So from the 3D perspective, claim your sovereignty and understand this is a free will universe. See your patterns when you can. See the patterns within yourself and see the patterns outside of you, microcosm, macrocosm, right? So from the 5D perspective, if you want to talk about getting into Tantra and energy, is that there is a separate connection between the genitals and the heart. There is a loop of energy that goes from the genitals, the root chakra and the sacral chakra, and up to the heart and back. And it's separate from the sushumna and the other, up the line of the other chakra systems. And depending on which depending on which system you're in, you could have, 114 chakras. You could have 72,000 chakras. They're just energy centers. And the chakra itself is where two nadis or two energy lines intersect. And then they kind of create that vortex as they intersect. So that's what a chakra is. And so that connection from the 5D perspective, that energetic loop from your genitals to your heart, that will guide you to what is in your best interest. Because when you're able to say, wow, this really turns me on, or I feel the juices flowing when I think about a project, or I think about writing a new song, or I think about auditioning for a show, or I think about starting a certain business. That's the sacral kicking in. And then you can follow that up with your heart of, how does this make me feel? There are some leaders in the motivational speaker world who are trying to convince people to not heed their emotions. It's just like a backward spin on living your life from ego and the mind. But your emotions are so important. I'm not saying wallow in them. I'm just saying acknowledge them, honor them, because when you're able to tune into your guidance system in your body, your genitals and your heart, which are energetic as well as physical guideposts for you. That's when you learn to live from these spaces, from your sacral and from your heart, decisions get really easy. Making decisions gets super duper easy, because now you're not just following a job for the salary, but you're going to be miserable. You're going to follow the career or the business that really suits you, that really allows you to come alive. And then that comes into the relationships, the people that you choose to or not choose. I mean, you could be perfectly happy being by yourself. And, if you've gone from relationship to relationship to relationship, it actually might be really good for you to spend some time alone, figure your shift out. And then, I don't know if we can cuss. I kind of cuss like a sailor sometimes. So
you can cuss on here. I just say shift because I haven't cussing too much.
Well, fuck. Okay. So then going forward.
We were talking about sacred sexuality. No, I'm kidding.
Well, and that's another thing too, is the difference between sacred sex and regular sex, the difference between sacred fucking, and regular fucking.
Okay, let's stop there, because
I pushed the button.
No. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about shift that no one's talked about. So there's several things that came up, and I've got them here. I've got the two main ones. One of them, you just connected something for me. Okay, because everything is related, right? And some things are more related or closer to the center than other things. And I think that's why you've got love, sex, money, it could be family, it could be relationship, but these close things, right? So in regard to our vocation or passion or purpose or whatever you want to call that, work, I've noticed this, about myself. And I'm bringing this up not because of me, but because I think people might be able to relate to it. Then we'll move to what you just said, because that's going to be a good one. But and that is suppression, tentativeness, apprehension, not stepping up, right? That's a suppression. That's something that I've experienced. Okay, believe it or not. And I'm realizing in talking to you that it's tied to my sexual energy. Nobody's stopping me from doing the things I want to do in terms of Soulogy, because let's just say that's the word for my vocation or passion, right? There are things that I know to do, that I want to do, and I'm not fucking doing it. And I'm realizing now that it's simply a copy of my sexual energy being repressed by no other than myself.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's fucking gold right now, because this has been gnawing at me for weeks, and I keep bowing out. And again, I'm not talking about me. I'm not doing that for my own purposes. I'm doing it to share revelation, right? I believe This is what happens now in this quantum field. We actually become aware of something, we share that, other people then have that possibility or that field of potential expand based on something they've heard in a conversation or whatever, right? So my point is, that I'm realizing in this moment that it's my own pattern of, I don't want to say self-sabotage because I think that's too strong. I think what it
I
is,
don't.
you don't? Okay.
Nope.
Because well, you're right. You're right. So it's,
No,
to
because
me,
yeah, I'm
yeah,
sorry, go ahead. No, it's
no,
just that idea of self-sabotage is that it's we sometimes we either we self-sabotage out of fear because we fear the reactions of the people, places, things, situations, events around us, or we're giving our fear away, we're giving our power away to the people, places, things, situations, events, and traumas that we know in our life. We stay with the devil that we know rather than venture off into an unknown field, because that's the way we've just been trained to be. And so the self-sabotage is just that, it's that little layer that you just need to bust through. Not need, you have free will, but yeah, you need to do that. You need to bust through that and just let that go, because ask yourself, what would what harm? Okay, so and it harm none, right? But if I bust through this, what's the worst that could happen?
Oh, I agree. I
Yeah,
agree. I can see in talking to you, and maybe it's just the code just went click. I can see where there's a pattern, right? Okay, so some people, look, the sexual energy has been repressed. And
yes,
I'm not trying to say anybody's is more intense than somebody else's, but if you look at the energy of sexual molestation, uh, you know, sexual assault, uh, um, you know, rape, all
mhm,
these things. If you look at the energy of that, what's it doing? It's building, it's suppressing, it's making that person scared of the whole energy of it, right?
exactly,
So the same
exactly.
thing would happen if I have let's say I grew up Catholic and I'm in I'm the only child.
I did. Ugh, yeah.
Well, I did too, but I wasn't an only child. But I wasn't in a strict environment. But still, the patterns and the rhythms were there because of the the lineage. But let's say I'm a child. I grew up in a Catholic environment. My mother's very devout Catholic, very strict. Very much the guilt-ridden thing. And
The
I
martyr.
know,
Yeah.
yeah,
The
exactly.
recreational martyr. Yeah, mine was too.
Exactly. And let's say that I'm not sexually active, but I'm constantly emotionally hammered by the horrible, stuff,
Yeah.
the taboo of sex. The energetic is going to have the same kind of thing. So what I'm trying to say is, as I'm looking at this thing in my own situation today, in terms of professional, right? I see a suppression that I can control, that I can, because it really is about self-worth, isn't it?
It's always about self-worth. And the thing about the self-sabotage, which is the other aspect of what we were just talking about, is that there's the sabotage that comes from the outside.
Yeah.
All right. And then there's the self-sabotage that comes from, well, I've been so conditioned that if I do this, if I go against the grain, if I go against what I've been told to do, there will be consequences,
Right.
and I'm almost scared of what those consequences are, even if it's just the unknown. But then the other aspect of self-sabotage is that we'll start to create false traumas or
Yeah.
false issues that just give us another chance for self-sabotage just because we're just scared to move forward.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I see. It's like, and I'm not just saying with myself, but with this epiphany, with other people, with everybody, really, everybody has that reservation. There's something like, how they talk about the divine feminine was oppressed for centuries. Witches,
Is yes.
people accused of being witches, burned at the stake, all that stuff, and how the
Yes.
lineage, how the effect on the DNA created an atmosphere, let's say in 2012, 2013, and the ensuing years, that they're scared to come up. They're scared to step forward. We've had a lot of them step forward on the show, which has been absolutely fascinating. Just off the hook. But it's the same type of thing, right? So there's like this built-in thing where don't go there. Where in fact, if you flip it, it's actually our most powerful source of energy, where we merge the physical and the non-physical. So I can see where it's an important subject, and I can see where there must be a relation, I would think, between a person's, and I don't think this is, you're going to have to tell us because you're the expert. I don't know if this is 100% accurate, but I would think at some point of on the journey, until you reach a certain point of discovery, that there would have to be some type of direct mirrored relationship between the person's, what we might call physical intimacy, with their expression through, let's say their art or through their work. You know what I mean? Is that right?
Well, if you're talking about what you feel within you and what you desire within you and how you manifest that out in the physical, that could be manifested in a myriad of ways. And for those of us who are artists, it comes out in our art, and that you see throughout the history of music and certainly paintings and visual art. In fact, some of the oldest artistic representations ever found by archaeologists are two things. Number one, on cave walls, it's vulva.
Yeah.
Even older than buffalo and deer and hunter-gatherer scenes, the pictures of vulva.
It is the center of the universe, isn't it?
Right. And then, yes, yoni, which means the origin of source. Yeah. And then some of the oldest objects ever found by archaeologists are dildos. So there's absolutely a connection between being in the physical and loving sex and loving pleasure and honoring that part of our body, both for males and females, or however you identify.
Well, and this is interesting, and I tend to have no filters, so I'm just going to keep going with it because I know there's a reason.
Do it. Do
it. So you're talking to somebody who had a very full, let's just say I'm 59 now, so this went up to about 49. So somebody that had a very, from the age of a young age, like 12, 13, but really started about 9. Okay. So there was a really extensive sexual journey, right? Did a lot of things and quite frequently. Then I went into a state where around 49, where I said, something's wrong. Like the mechanics of it, the partner was fine, pleased and all that, which was all the 3D man going, oh, did I do a good job and all that? Am I a man?
Yeah.
But then I remember walking out of the last encounter going, I can't do this anymore. And it was part of my wake-up experience. And I went into celibacy. And I started to treat it, and most of it was unconscious, but I started to treat myself and my intimacy with reverence and sanctity. And so then I meet Morgan, who'd been downloading in regard to sacred sexuality, sacred union, Herioscamos. I meet her, now I'm whatever it was, like 53 or something. And our first encounter was a Herioscamos encounter, which meant that we were merging, kind of like tantric, but in the ethers, and my chakras, all had orgasms, and quite incredible. So once we got together, and it took us a long time because we were both celibate, we both approached it, not really knowing what to do, because I used to ask her all the time, well, what the hell are we supposed to do? You're the one that downloaded this. And she'd say, well, I don't know, but I know what we're not supposed to do. Which really, to me,
that's good.
It was very difficult because for me, as a man, I only knew one way. So I had literally was all taken away from me. What I didn't understand, which I think she did, was it wasn't so much about the act. It was about the energy of the act, which I think this is a decent segue into what you brought up earlier. So there is physical sex, and then there's sacred sex. There is sacred fucking, and then there's regular fucking. I think from what you're saying, there's a distinction on the sacred sexuality side between typical physical intimacy, let's say slower, or whatever, more, and then there's fucking sacred. But you can fuck in a sacred sexuality frequency or not?
Well, okay. Well, let's go back to the words because, again, my background in the arts and as a writer, I am a word nerd. So I don't like the connotations of a lot of words. Just like if you look up the word witch in the dictionary, that is not what a witch is. So whenever I want to know what a word is, I go to the etymology, the origin
Yeah.
of the word. Like yoni is the origin of source, and so the word sacred. It goes back to a Proto-Indo-European root that means holy, to make divine.
Yeah.
So when you are having sacred sex, and this is in Tantra, it's called Maituna. The hieros gamos is the Greek and Latin aspect of this, but it's similar in that it's you are uniting from a holy sacred place. Tantra just has way more ritual involved to that, and so if you understand, and I'll do it from the tantric perspective, okay? So in tantric sex, the first thing you do is not foreplay. It's not, feeling each other up or kissing or whatever. The first thing you do is, after lighting the fire and the Agni home and whatever, is that you are going to bring the divine into yourself.
Yeah.
And so when you bring the divine into yourself through your crown, however you like to do that, and you then feel that you are filled with source, with the divine, and then your partner is doing the same thing. So then when you are looking at your partner, you're looking at your partner through the eyes of the divine. They're not your human eyes.
Right.
It's like a filter of the divine.
Right.
And you just don't get that with regular fucking. That because the regular sex, which, hey, we've all done that, so I'm not knocking that. It's just that that's more of just the physical thing, and most of the time, sex is, especially one night stands, even fuck buddy hookups, is that they're mostly mutual masturbation. It's like you just got tired of doing it yourself, and you wanted somebody else to do it for you, right? And so, but when you are having sacred sex, then it is, you are bringing the divine, or drawing down the moon, but you are really feeling source within yourself, and you acknowledge source within your partner. And so when you are the masculine aspect, let's say you're the masculine aspect of source, you're the divine masculine, then you can only see the goddess, the divine feminine in your partner, right? And of course, this doesn't have anything to do with gender. This is your predominant energy. And I know a lot of people think I have a dominant masculine energy. I don't. I'm fully in my Shakti power. But when you are looking at your partner, and this happened to me when I met my twin flame in the physical.
How long ago was that?
Yeah, he found me on Instagram in March of 2017, and we met in the physical for the first time in October of 2018.
Oh, we'll go back to that.
Yeah, and that moment of when you have the what's called the twin flame eyeball thing, I'm sure you've heard about it. When you see and look in your twin flame's eyes for the first time, it was the most incredible experience. And then there's a tantric eyeball thing too, and I went, which is left eyeball to left eyeball, and I was just stunned by that. And of course, I'm having these inner orgasms, and it's just like from there on out, like I cannot be with any other man, obviously, but it's just that full anchoring of the divine in the physical, and I don't know that I've ever felt it like that before. And so then of course we had sex because yummy, we're right there, and it was so incredible, and it was unlike anything else. And that celibacy that you went into, in Tantra we call it brahmacharya, and it's allowing yourself to be the teacher. You're allowing your universe, the universe, to be your teacher. And and I certainly have been in brahmacharya, and when it's not with him, it's not with anybody. And but really anchoring in the divine, that is what sacred sex is all about. So when we're all getting all hot and bothered, the two of us, that's sacred fucking, because fucking, you can kind of think of it as just the fun sex. That's the rough and ready, let's go, let's do this now. It's that, yes, there's that aspect of the physical sex, which is going to be better than any other physical sexual union you ever have. But beneath that, the anchor, the root of that sacred fucking is the unconditional love. It is the soul song between the two, and that you're still seeing the divine within each other, and that you could stop the fucking at any second and just stare at each other, and you're right back to the love. So the love is always there in the sacred fucking.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I can only speak from my own experience, and I know that everybody's journeys are different. And if you say it's a couple, then every couple's journeys are different. I've I've been kind of intrigued by some acquaintances and friends who who have come together in that type of frequency. Whether it lasted or not. We might call it twin flame frequency or whatever you want to call it. And they jump right into the fucking. And I'm like going, I don't know how that can work. And maybe they had a different path. And some of it seemed to work out, some of it didn't. But for me, I realized that for myself, and really my partner too, because she was celibate, kind of went through the same type of, revelation, evolution of the, understanding of the sanctity or whatever, choosing self. But that there was, and a lot of this came from her as well. She explains things that I might feel or experience, which is you have to purify. You purify the vessel, which I think is the same thing you're saying in terms of raising the quotient of self-love, self-reverence, self-respect, self-honor. And it's like, how do you do that if there is a maligned energy? Because you mentioned one night stands, you mentioned casual sex, and I spent a lot of time, because I had a great tutor, going back to all these partners and retrieving my soul aspects and giving them theirs back in reverence, and I really felt the power of that, and it obviously altered my body chemistry, altered my DNA, or realigned it, So there's a lot of stuff there, and I think too, like from your opinion, or your perspective, your knowing, is there how significant is the difference between a typical masculine journey who's now incarnated, right, and a feminine? I mean, it's they talk about Mars, Venus. And I think Morgan and I probably have a really, in the higher percentile of being able to communicate and understand each other, because so much of it has been, I have to say from the beginning, telepathic and knowing.
Yeah.
But as far as that part of it, I really struggled, and I really wanted to come out and help men, because I kept like trying to like connect there and say, what I mean by connect is like, do you understand where I'm coming from? Something might be easy for her, but not for me. Like I'm used to, this certain protocol, which might be energetically speaking, work out, release, recoup, and then back to work. This is a pattern that
it's a refractory period is what that's called. Right. You got to learn how to just go and enjoy, and the ebb and flow of that. And that's perfect for sex as well as your business life.
No, but that's what I was actually going to say, is that to a point where I broke through and figured out, let's just put it in terms of an intimate encounter as a metaphoric representation of what you're talking about. You don't have to ejaculate. You don't have to perform. You don't have to go through these certain motions. There's actually what's happened in our sacred sexual experiences that were deeply embedded in the physical is that, you might be touching her back and all of a sudden light language appears. Or I might put my hand, I remember the first time we got together, I put my hand down her chakras, and she was chakra-gasming through it all, and so there's all these miraculous things that don't happen by the typical stimulation or titillation of the old 3D, perspective, right? I mean, it can happen at any time. It can happen when you're holding hands, right? It can happen, just when you look at each other, like you said, right?
Right. It can happen. It can happen anytime. One of the things that I experienced in my sexual awakening, which is kind of how I got into all this to begin with, is that I started having spontaneous orgasms while I'm driving, while I'm standing in line at the post office or the grocery store. And I had no idea what was going on. It was just my it was like my body really merging with my 5D and above energy flow, and just how good that feels and how happy it made me. Of course, that's now what I have that available as a, techniques and whatever you can learn in my awesome course, which is Awakening Energy and Sound Orgasm Meditation, for anybody who wants to get on that bandwagon of yumminess. But let's look at the word foreplay. And I'm a Libra, that's why I jump around. So let's look at the word foreplay, because in our culture, if you go to any kind of sex article or a book about sex and relationships and that kind of thing, they're gonna segment the sexual experience into, okay, you've met, and then foreplay, and then sex, and then after sex. And what I really don't like about that term foreplay, for instance, is that the term foreplay kind of makes men think that that's optional. I'm like, no, it's actually very important for the woman. It's not just important for the woman to get wet enough, because women provide most of the lubrication for sex, but it's also to stretch the opening of the vulva so that sex is comfortable for the woman, especially if the guy's larger. You really have to warm that up. But the idea is that's foreplay. What the woman needs is foreplay. And sex doesn't start until the penis enters the vagina. So foreplay is considered optional, and sex is defined as when the penis what it wants, rather than what the woman needs. Do you understand what I'm saying? You follow me?
This is according to what? The old.
This is just the standard idea of foreplay and sex, and then afterplay. And men are terrified of the afterplay because they're terrified of the cuddling, because of the emotions that may come up, especially if it was really good sexually. And I saw some comment about sex, and when sex is comical and you crack up. Absolutely. Laughter is amazing. Of course, please don't laugh at the person. But I mean, if things just happen and it's comical, go with it. Just laugh. Yeah, you don't want to destroy his ego. And that's actually another thing we could talk about, is how women don't speak up for what they want in a sexual relationship or a sexual encounter because they're afraid of hurting the man's ego. That's huge. But there were so many topics in what I'm trying to address all of them.
Well, I mean, it's such a great, focal point that really is representative of everything. Because you've got the feminine, you've got the masculine, you've got an alteration or an evolution that's occurring. We call it ascension, whatever you want to call it. Something's happening. I mean, obviously, nothing was happening until she landed and said, fuck this, I'm back. And then there was a period of 2, 3, 4 years, at least from my perspective, my relationship happened to parallel what was happening in the energetic field. So that was kind of interesting. But my point is, it's an interesting focal point for what's happening because it's got a physicality to it. And it's basically the core representation of what's occurring. Now, what I'm getting at here is what you just said, women being hesitant to talk about what they want. And of course, we immediately run to the old perceptions of, based on where we've been. This is deeper than that. The woman, first of all, nothing really starts, at least from what I can tell, until she made her move, until she took her power back. You know what I mean? And then that forced a good stress on him, right? Started to de-emphasize his false power, his programs, and then the dance starts. But to me, that seems to be key. And Morgan said for years in regard to potential divine unions. She said we would look at people and go, hey, they look like, that, and she would say, and even speaking from her own experience, because, Morgan's relationships before me, which were a couple, okay, were not like the one with me. She came in the door and said, hey, pal, this is who I am, this is what I expect. And I'm like, yes, I serve 2 bags full. I totally get it. You're a goddess, and I'm just going to have to figure this shit out, right? But my point is, that feminine drive, I mean, how do you feel about it? That feminine force, at least in this age, in this space and time, seems to be the driver. Like why would a man give up what he's always known, which gives him a sense of power and value, even though it might be distorted and shadowed? Why would he give that up? There's only one reason. There's something out there that's better, and I believe she has that innateness to know what's offered in that type of scenario that he just doesn't. Women's intuition is a perfect example. Like, she's connected, she knows. That's what I'm getting at. Not so much about, oh, can you do this and can you do that? It's more about, let me show you the magic.
Well, especially in twin flames, the feminine leads in the 5D and the men lead in the 3D, let's say. Or another way to put it, as the woman's awake, for the feminine's awake first, and then we realize, oh my gosh, he's my twin flame, and then he runs, and then we spend most of the twin flame journey chasing, because men in the physical do not understand what is being offered to them. It's almost like it's too easy.
Yeah.
Wait, you're giving me love. Okay, the word love scares me, first of all. But then, you're offering me this kind of dream relationship, but I'm so wounded and I'm so patterned. I don't know how to break out of my wounds and my patterns. And then, that's the journey then of the healing. But when it's funny, because when I look at men, I don't see them as like a grown man, with all of the the look and the whatever they've done for their grooming and whatever. I see them as what they looked like when they were a little boy. And so, I see, like, before they were conditioned, before they were told how to be and to look a certain way and walk a certain way, and that, this kind of thing. And all I see is like a little boy that just wants to be loved. And so for women, if we can look at our men as deep down inside, he just wants to be loved, but the 3D conditioning has told him to pursue everything but that. In fact, to be scared of love. What we can do is we can encourage them, but we can't tell them what to do. I mean, this is the free will universe, but we can show them, okay, look, this is the reward, because men are still very reward oriented, right? That this is the reward. This is what you
men are
get.
like dogs and women are like cats.
I just got a husky and I love my little doggy, but it's that energy of you have to work with what you got, but and by that, what I mean is approach him in the relationship and approach the relationship where he is. And this is where a lot of divine feminines get into trouble, especially on the twin flame journey, is that we want him to be the divine masculine that we see or dream of. And literally for me, because my masculine came to me to dream when I was 19. And so it's that we want him to be that, rather than understanding, wow, no, I have to meet him where he is. And that's where he is, with all of his fears about love and relationships, all of his empty karmic sex, all of his patterns or addictions. That I have to meet him where he is and kind of backtrack from there to kind of unravel our relationship to where we want it to be. And that includes shamanic journeying and shamanic practices like the soul retrieval, the power retrieval, healing the past lives, clearing up the Akashic records and that kind of thing, without bypassing the healing necessary, because bypassing is only going to mean you're gonna keep going through these lessons until until he or you finally get it. And it's once you are able to be in that place within yourself, that's when you can truly come together in that sacred union. Before that, it might just be sacred fucking, but twin flames naturally have a very strong sexual draw to each other.
I think I think for me anyway, I totally get what you're saying, because I've lived it, I guess. That dance, but that sexual magnetization is there. It's different. It's not anything that we're familiar with. And I'm talking about this incarnation, or maybe the previous few incarnations, there's too much other stuff that's, kind of blocked it or impeded it, right? It's a very strong magnetization, and it has a different way, a different language, because it doesn't operate by the systems and the performance and the patterns, and it comes out of nowhere. Like, I've always felt, and I've talked to Morgan about this over the years, like, I feel like there's four aspects that showed up to the party. There's the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and then there's the human man and the female.
Exactly.
Right? And
exactly.
So I love what you said about, the woman thinking, okay, well, he needs to be this divine masculine. What his potential is, and this was my own kind of thing, right? I'm just saying, I'm like, you know what? I'm that guy, but I'm also this guy over here, this boots on the ground, and I'll be goddamned if my experience is worthless. So there's some type of fusion that I'm bringing to the table after a certain level of leveling up, where I integrate my masculine divine and my human. It's like the masculine divine is the Akashic, the human is the experience. You combine the two, and you have a more full, a holier, more whole, a divine masculine and at all, So I totally get that, and I think that it's like everything in the ascension, it's got an ing to it. It's not ed, it's not done. It's
right.
It's being done, and so it doesn't operate on the same chronological sequential pattern. Mm. It comes and goes. I remember the first time
spiral time in the physical.
Yes, and that's good, because what I'm about to describe, I think, happened about this time of the year 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So, but what happened was we were in that space of and again, we had been celibate, we had been careful, we had respected that. Where many times we'd be in the heat of it, and first it was her, then later it was me, and I'd say, hey, you know what, we got to stop, and then I'd have to run outside and take a cold shower or whatever the case is, right? But we knew. So what I'm saying is, one night we're laying there, we have our hands together, which is how we go to bed, and we do our thing. But that night, all of a sudden, she starts getting these waves, orgasm. And I'm laying there going, because I'm at wit's end by this time. I'm like, what the hell? How's this going to work? And then next thing you know, I started having it. And then the next thing you know, it progressed. And then if you took a picture of would have been the second hour, hour and a half, I was in missionary position, full penetration, no movement.
Yeah.
And nobody said, hey, this is what you do. This is what happened. There was that integration or convergence, or merging of those four aspects, right? And many multi-dimensional aspects, I would have to add. But the physical ramifications, or the physical, was one of incredible off-planet stamina, permanent rigidity in the erection. This is no movement, but the sensations being very much Kundalini, shared, and many, many other things after. And the reason I bring this up is for two reasons. One is keep going. That would be my advice to the man. I can't really speak so much with women, but keep going, keep feeding this atypical pattern, or way, lifestyle, and two, it'll come at any time, right?
Right. And talking about sex, and what you're talking about right now is that when men get to this part from the in the twin flame, let's say, is that they don't know what to do. And it brings them to a standstill. Absolutely. Or a late still, whatever, is that they are brought to this position where they have no idea what to do. They don't know what to say. And that is so antithetical to the way men have been trained to know. I always have the answer. You have to be the know-it-all. You have to be the one. You have to be the guy. Be the guy with all the right. You have to have all the answers. Be the fixer.
What's the
be
problem?
the one that
Let me
saves the day. The comic book hero, the Superman, or whatever. Is
That's
that men are taught to, because the masculine energy is to go make do. Right. That's the masculine energy. And the feminine energy is to sit on her throne and magnetize everything, right? We don't tell the fetus how to grow and to be full term and to how to come out of the vagina, right? We just sit back and we let it happen and we push and breathe. You know what I'm saying? Is that what happens is in relationships, and what happens in sex right now is that when men have that moment of, oh wow, this is different. They don't know what to do and they freeze. And what actually happens is that men will either not be able to get an erection, or they get an erection that doesn't stay because they're not able to fall back on the old patterns of, this is just sex. Because when a lot of men, and I love men, so this is not anything against them, but when a lot of men come in to say the one night stands, it really is all about ego, and when there's that woman that affects them differently, suddenly they don't know what to do. Or if you had sex with someone and it was beautiful and wonderful, and suddenly he grabbed his clothes and ran out the door, just know you affected him. He was affected by that, and he didn't know how to process that, because men have not been given the tools. As boys and young men, they have not been given the tools of how to feel emotion, how to process emotion, and then how to express that. Without feeling like a sissy, a wuss, a pussy, or whatever. And I don't like any of those words because they're so derogatory to the feminine, but just this whole idea that when men start to have this awakening, and it's not easy on you guys. It is not easy, because the men who will be the ones who dismantle patriarchy. It's not going to be women wearing pink crocheted hats and having marches. We're not the ones who are going to dismantle patriarchy. That will be done by the men, and that is what you're doing. And that's why you don't understand what's going on. Your whole world, inside and outside, is crumbling. And you, who have been trained to go make and do, you don't know what to do. And so you are at a standstill on every level of your life, in love, in sex, and in money.
So here we go again to what I was hoping for when we started. Which was that connection, that connectivity to all aspects. Now you've ratcheted it up, and I'm happy that you have, when you say that the masculine is going to be the one that dismantles the patriarchy.
He's the only one who can.
Absolutely. And so if you drill down, is what I was saying earlier, I found for myself that at my core, you can find where I'm at from my vibration in terms of sacred sexuality, and by what I do with it. Okay, not that if I don't do anything it's bad, or if I do something, it's not like that. It's like it shows you, and again, this is just one person, it's a micro example, but I want to just reinforce what you said and say it boldly. And I have talked about it before, but not in at this level in terms of the context of the conversation. I lost my erection. I lost my libido. I lost my self-image. I remember when Morgan came the first time, now this was for 10 weeks. I never took my basketball shorts off. All right. That was understood. We slept together. It was pure. I remember the first night we were kissing for like, it was crazy. We couldn't stop. It was like 6 hours of like two junior high kids, But I remember also within the first 2 or 3 weeks, sitting on the edge of the bed and just, after, kissing and just whatever, because I didn't know what to do. And she looked at me and she goes, "You don't know what to do you?" And I'm like, "Actually, I don't know what to do." And I sat on the edge of the bed and I just started crying. And this was the beginning of, I would have to say, over a couple of years. Like it went for a long time. And where I was having these bouts, and you described it perfectly, because a lot of times it would be, I'd get an erection, and then we'd start, and then the patterns and the voices would be like, oh, you need to do this, or you're not doing that, and all of a sudden,
circles, harder circles.
Yeah. I was ready to just go ahead and cut.
Mechanism, right? Yeah.
I was ready to cut the damn thing off and just say, fuck it. What's the point of even having it? Is this what you want me to do, or what? But then something would happen, first in little flashes, and then like the thing I was telling you about earlier. Now we're talking about encounters where the walls disappear, the ceiling disappears. We're talking about being in a immobile position in missionary, no movement, and feeling electricity running up and down your spine. When I did, halfway through that first encounter I was describing, when I did ejaculate, it wasn't even normal. It was literally like a fire hose. There was no spurting. There was no spasming. It just went, and then when we were done, she's like, what the hell is that? I mean, it was like, it was not human. It was beyond it. So there was these little, I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't get discouraged. As a man, don't get discouraged. Go easy on yourself. Wipe the slate clean after each encounter, no matter how great it is or how horrible you suffered, because those little flashes will keep coming. And the crazy thing is, and she mentioned this after the second or third time it happened, which was the first 4 times it happened was like in the period of like 2 or 3 weeks. But she said, it's never going to be the same twice. It's always something different. And I'll be damned if that's not the exact thing.
Should be a different experience, but this is again part of the brainwashing, and this is what we see in TV and movies. Or well, I haven't had a TV since 2004, but I mean, it's just this indoctrination of what the sex act is supposed to be, what relationships are supposed to be. And I tell you, the worst thing that's happened to relationships is reality TV and these dating shows and that kind of thing. And I think that's actually hurt men and women, but especially men in terms of the expectation. Yeah. You can say from a tantric perspective, be in a state of allowing and receiving, non-judgment and no expectation. You're not attached to the outcome, and you're not judging what happens, and you're not having that expectation of what I should be doing, what she should be feeling, what I should be feeling, what my penis should be doing, and why isn't it doing it? You can just be there in the moment and be there in the now. Because be there in the now. Okay, this is what I'm feeling. This is what we're feeling together. And then that communication of how are you feeling this? What are you feeling? Would you like to share? Of course, with twin flames, you have the telepathy, but for muggles and Astartes and other people that don't have that telepathy yet, is that communication is crucial to understanding. And then that's going to be the information that you need to know what to do next.
Well, and I think that's a great point too, because the telepathy has paralleled and that's the thing, the signpost, the markers on the journey, they don't work the way the old ones do. Like, you go to first base and second base, and I'm being punished about it, but the thing is it's still there, and it doesn't just come in through what we would consider sexual intimacy. It comes through sacred sexual intimacy, which can be an elevation in telepathy. Like we've had that happen many times, even in the last few weeks. We don't always talk. She normally talks if there's talking when we go to bed at night, but it'll be the next day. I'll say, this happened. She goes, that's exactly what I had, or vice versa. Or like in other words, that's directly attributable to the further expansion of the sacred sexuality. Another example will be and I guess in other words, one of the things that's changed is, I hate that word penis. What else would we call it? The lingo.
I love the word penis. I love it. Okay, amazing. I love penis. My clients call me the penis guru because I love it so much.
But the penis becomes more of an indicator. Now, maybe this will help me. And I'll give you an example, even like last night. And she probably didn't even know it. So we put our hands together, and she started pulling in this information. And this isn't the first time this has happened. Well, by physical, biological standards, I'm getting aroused.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't a sexual thing. It was simply the information moving through me. Now, this goes on for, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes. And then by the time it's over and we kind of, lay back a little bit, I guess to go to sleep because it was very late, my leg's all wet. My penis is all hot, and I'm like going, holy shit, I didn't even notice that. But it gave me an indication that we were merged, which I already knew, but it just to more clarity, a more clear channel, because really what I see that's so extraordinary about the partnering, right, is that you're physically materializing the energetics, which has been another thing that maybe you can speak to, is over the last few months, the involvement in more of a physicality, I guess I would have to put it that way, of the light bodies. So we've had situations, in the last few, let's say 3 or 4 months, we had a situation where, more than once, where her masculine came out of her body, my feminine came out of my body, we're watching them, and then they start making love. Okay. Another one would be, my masculine, her feminine, instances where it's like the light body is like the bridge between the human body and the higher self body, or whatever that is. And actually feeling everything that they're doing. Like what's going on with that? So there's a whole, myriad doorways, portals, gateways that are accessible through, I say through her. And when I say her, I mean through the goddess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Through the universe, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, everything's a vagina. Yeah, everything's a portal to go through. Great cosmic vaginas. Just pick one. But what you're talking
that's why
about.
It has a doorbell. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly, right? The clit. That's just the external part. There's a lot more of the clitoris inside. But
that's for sure.
Yeah. But your experience though with the physical sensation, you were talking about how you were getting sexually aroused. If your body was reacting, but you were not actually thinking, hey, I want sex, then you were not sexually aroused. You know what I mean? That your body was having reactions to the energy, which is completely possible, because it is actually possible for a person, let's say a woman, we'll just use this as an example. It is possible for a woman to orgasm when she's being raped. And that does not imply that she actually consented just because she had an orgasm. So for anybody who's watching this, I just wanted to kind of make that clear. Because the body can still have physical reactions, even though you're not consciously wanting it, or et cetera, et cetera. So in that way that a woman can orgasm when she's being raped, because it's just the physicality of the body reacting. What you were experiencing sounds like you were experiencing this incredible energy, which is your Shakti, which is your Kundalini, which is your energy flowing through your physical Merkaba, right? This is your physical avatar, your physical vehicle, and your body was just reacting to that. So it wasn't sexually aroused unless you were actually wanting sex. And this is one of the reasons why I'm actually working on an article right now about desexualizing orgasm. Because climax is the physical aspect, and this is the way I split it up in my program. But climax is the physical experience, the physical explosion, which is usually a localized and brief and explosive outward. Orgasm is this wave, and it can go on for hours and hours and hours and build and build and build. And you can have orgasms for 4 or 6 hours and you still feel energized. You don't feel tired. That is a frequency. Orgasm is an energetic frequency that you can step into at any time. And that's kind of what you were experiencing. And then your body decided to come along for the journey for a little bit. And then your mind was like, whoa, what's going on?
Oh, I didn't notice last night. I didn't notice it. Now it's happened before. I've even had a couple of, orgasms without any, just through the experience without any touching, any stimulation, and it just kind of happens
And
on
you
its
can
own.
have orgasms for hours without an erection, you know,
Mm.
that the physical body is just a tool. It's our vehicle, but it's a tool for whatever we want to do. Do we want to build a house? Do you want to go fishing? Do you want to get an erection and have sex? Well, you can have sex without an erection too. You know, there are a lot of different ways. And this is what a lot of men, I think, are coming to, is that all of these little boxes for all of these different aspects of their lives, because men like to compartmentalize things, and sex is a big box in their life, right? But is that they're learning that these different boxes, these compartmentalized aspects of their lives, are not so separate, and they're starting to merge and starting to overlap, which is what happened with your light bodies, because that's how souls make love, is they actually enter each other and merge. And the closest we can get to that in the physical is the penetration of either fingers in the vagina or the anus, the penis in the vagina or the anus or the mouth or whatever, you know, that's the closest we can get to that merge, because we have this density of matter that we carry with us here in the physical, and we're just the physical emanation of our soul. So our souls are doing all kinds of things. My masculine and I have astral sex, I think 24/7, you know, and then when we are coming together in the physical, it's just incredibly powerful, to the point where you almost don't need the physical experience of that, because it's so powerful.
It's a possibility. Nothing. I'm really nothing now. But what you said too about the light bodies, you know, like I remember the first time it happened to me was in 2018, and we were doing afternoon sessions. We would lay down in the bed and put, like we do at night.
Yes.
And but this was, you know, we're clothed and, you know, whatever. But I started having nonstop orgasms. Like I didn't even have an orgasm, obviously, because we weren't having that type of intimacy. We were already into this. And I remember I jumped in the shower twice. This went on for like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
I think you need to redefine the word intimacy for yourself and for your relationship, because the word intimacy that you still have it as you still have it in your mind is not what you're actually experiencing. Because just if she's across the room and you look at her and suddenly you feel all warm and gooey, that's intimate. That's intimate.
I know. At this point, I didn't know. This was 2-3 years ago. What I was saying is but this was a typical example of how it can come, right? No pun intended. And so, but it was such a strange feeling. Like I had days, you know, in my life where I could masturbate 3, 4, 5, 6 times in a day, when you just, everything was, you know, it's just going on like nature calling. But this was different. I didn't ejaculate. So I'm running around downstairs in the basement, and her and a friend were upstairs, and I'm yelling at her like, how the fuck do you make this stop, right? Now I jumped in the shower twice. I attempted to masturbate twice. I think once I did ejaculate, but it was like nothing even, it didn't even affect me. Like the ecstatic, you know, orgasmic frequency didn't change. In fact, it probably made it go worse. I've had situations where my right leg is having female orgasms for like, you know, like we're talking like 15, 20 minutes. You know, so this is all, we've had situations where, you know, during or after that, you know, we have a mutual dimensional experience. You know, the ceiling disappears, or beings come in, or information comes in. And so there's all these, what did you say? All these vaginas, or all these portals within the portal.
Vaginas everywhere, man. Just love it.
Right? Yeah. And then you were talking about I was going to bring this up too. I remember early on when she came the first time. So we had 10 weeks, and then the second time was 12 weeks, and we had a divine union ceremony, which we didn't consummate the relationship probably for a week to 10 days after the ceremony.
Wow.
So there was no, okay, well, this is, you do this, then you do that. It just, it happened as naturally as we could allow it. And that was mostly my evolution that would be impeding things, you know, whatever. But one of the things I remember that came very easy for me, and no, it didn't feel easy, but it came easy if I look at the field, was I wasn't going to push her. I knew better than, like, I knew that I saw that energy. I saw what it had to offer, even though it was unconscious. And like you said earlier, oh, it's too good to be true. I kept saying to myself, okay, this is this or something better with her or someone else, because I can't see any dents in the armor, you know. And so what happened was I just accepted it. Now, I was patient. I didn't throw anything down. I might have projected a couple of times. I don't know, and I even remember her telling me, I noticed that. I appreciate that. It still didn't make it perfectly easy in terms of my masculine understanding and integration and alignment with my true nature, but it sure was nice to be able to feed that energy and allow it to give to you, reciprocate as the face of the universe, as a mirror of yourself. And that, to me, was invaluable, because to this day, and it's not about the person, and maybe for me it is, but it's an energy field where there is no distortion, where you can actually tap into multiple streams of, if you put it on a human level. And women had their journey, men had their journey. I can only speak from the man's journey. How many times she, being what I perceived as she, fucked me, or betrayed me, or whatever. It's never happened and never will. It's like this space, which has a human involvement, which is, to me, again, the catalyst. It's the elixir. It's the accelerator of the potential. Is the intimacy, right, that you were talking about. You can't bullshit the soul.
No, that intimacy is that true connection. It's the connection that is above, beyond anything that the 3D or 4D ego and mind can contrive to diminish the fact that you're having an intimate experience, because it's the intimacy that most people are searching for is that. And yet they're scared of it when confronted with it, when they're faced with it. And then that's when, in that moment, they'll make the choice to run, grab the clothes and run, and ghost and not call, because they don't know what to do with such an absolutely pure connection. There is nothing that there is no way that I could ever feel anything for my twin flame except absolute love. And lots of sex, of course, but you know what I'm saying is that there's just nothing that could ever interfere with that. And I think that this is one of those aspects of the awakening that men are experiencing, and they're experiencing it either directly in relationships or new relationships, or they're recognizing the lack of it in their current relationship. And they just feel there's something so integral to who they are as spirit in the physical that it's just missing from their love, their sex, and their career, And so it's just about awakening to that pure energy, just as you were talking about. And that is what is intimate. That is unconditional love. And it's love with no conditions, no parameters,
no expectations.
No judgment, no expectations.
No specific old characteristics. And the thing is, and I appreciate what you said about redefining, intimacy. I was talking about a different stage of it, but I want to bring it back up because I'm all about, for me, as I look at everything, I try to keep it simple. Everything is about integrating in this incarnation. I don't think for 1 second that we're going to actually hit 100%, because we're in virgin territory and there is no 100%. It's like we're setting the 100% mark, and then the next go around comes and they mix their experience with the Akashic we leave, and then you have a greater. But what I was going to say is, part of what I find absolutely mind-blowing is the merging and the integration of the physical and the non-physical. Now you can take that into multifaceted streams, together, separately, but at the core are two people buck ass naked, laying in bed, got all the expectations are gone, the performance is gone, and you don't know what to do, but you know what not to do, right? And the things that can happen are just mind blowing. Like one of the things I learned was when I'm freed up and I've surrendered and I've got the chatters gone and the second nature mechanics are gone, I can hear her body. I can feel her body. I can see her body in ways that are way beyond the five senses. All my fingers have eyes. They all have 10 hands apiece. You know, I mean, you can feel it. So there's all these portals.
Fractal experience.
Right. So there's all these portals over her body, that in her body, on her body that I can find, which is really cool. Because you might just stop right here, you know, and you're on, you know, like say the lower back or the hip, and you just kind of press, and all of a sudden, boom, bingo. Well, how the fuck did I know that? As she's, you know, going into a euphoric, or you know what I mean? And so it's mutual. Everything she's feeling, I'm feeling. And the same thing happens the other way. I've seen her shapeshift. I've seen her turn into 2, 3 at the same time, 3, 4 aspects of herself with at a minimum a shadowed silhouette. You know, there's all this stuff that I think this is the doorway for us, whether it be, like you said, you know, somebody who's aligned in sacred sexuality can be alone, but there's something about where two or more gather, right? Wasn't that written in one of the great books? I want to ask you.
I don't read that book, so I don't know. Yeah.
I was a Catholic too. I didn't know shit.
You never read the Bible in the Catholic Church.
I knew was the prayers that you had to memorize when you went to confession, because
and the choreography around, during Mass,
So yeah, exactly, right. So how do you suggest people get to this point, whether they're with someone or they're not, and what can a couple do to, you know, kind of set the stage or you know, create the space for an encounter, both, you know, figuratively and literally, you know, to step into that field? And what are your recommendations?
Well, since you said the word space, I'm going to take that literally. Having a sacred space is crucial for sacred sex, for sacred union through sacred sex, because just quickly, sacred union could be the two of you holding hands walking down the street, you know, with your clothes on, you know, that is sacred union. But sacred union in terms of sacred sex, having a sacred space is absolutely crucial. And it has to be a space that it really is just for the two of you. Now, I'm all for, you know, sex on the kitchen counter, the dining room table, the sofa, the wherever, you know, wherever the spirit moves you, right? But having a space that is just for the two of you, it's not for the kids. The kids can't go in there. The pets can't go in there. There's no television in there. So I'm talking quite literally, which I'm sure is not what you meant, but just having that physical space for those of us who are still very much in the physical, right? That is the first step usually. And having colors like fiery colors. This is why, you know, I don't think anybody else does a lot of red and orange, but those are my colors, and purple and magenta. And so, for instance, in the tantric ritual, it's said that there's no true tantric sex without a red blanket on the floor, or a red cover on the mattress, or whatever that you're having sex on. And so the idea of bringing in the colors that stimulate those chakras, there's nothing wrong with the root chakra. There's nothing wrong with the sacral chakra. There's nothing wrong with the solar plexus. And those three chakras, especially the root and the sacral, get dogged in the spiritual community. These are your foundation. These are your root of everything else. Now, once you are all fabulous and you're all living up in the 5D and 7D and 9D and whatever, and you can live from your heart as your new root chakra, Great, that's wonderful. However, your root chakra is what roots you to all of the good stuff here in the physical. And so, people, oh, I live in fear or scarcity or whatever. Well, once you heal all that shit, which is a big part of this journey, right? Then you're able to see the root chakra. Wow, that's amazing. And I love that. So start to learn learn to love red and orange. And when you are making your space that is just for you, when you walk into that space, you will be transformed just by walking into a space that is designed, decorated, made for having that experience. And it's not for the kids, it's not for the dogs, it's not for anybody else. So that when you open the door, literally a portal, you open the door into your sacred space that is only for making love in the very sacred, beautiful way, which could include sacred fucking, that you are transformed instantly when you walk into that space, and that process begins. And then once you're able to know, oh, wow, when I walk in there, this is what's going to happen, you can mentally walk into that space, imagine it, because our imagination is so crucial to our journey, right? Then you can enter that space in your mind, and then you can start to feel that long before you get to the actual physical space. And that's how you can start to open that space from within. And again, remember your connection between the genitals and your heart. So again, with the root and the sacral, when you're able to just really feel those juices flowing and what's ahead of you in your physical sacred space, it opens that up in the pelvis. And just some things that you can start to do is don't sit so much. You're sitting on all your nerves and your blood vessels that you need for sex later. That you can do some Shakti dancing or Kundalini dancing or that kind of thing, something that gets the body involved long before you get to the actual sex. And you could do your Kundalini and Shakti dancing in your sacred space, like really, really make a space. Can you make a space in your house or your apartment that's just for you? I mean, if this is really important to you, of course you will. Or maybe you're like, time to move, kids. we gotta buy a bigger house. We need an extra room in the house, so mommy and daddy, or mommy and daddy can have a sacred space that's just for us, because this is so crucial to your relationship. And if your bedroom is decorated in pale blue or pale gray because that's what's tranquil, that's not sexy. Right? That's just not sexy. And so if you're still very much a visceral person, where you're still very visually engaged, and men are highly visual, right? That's why the lingerie business is so such a mega industry, is that men are still highly visual. And so when you create a space that is conducive to the free flow of sexual energy, then they will carry that with them long after the act. So it's like, just you have to make this a part of your life. This isn't something this is what I say about Tantra. Tantra is a way of life. It's not something I do at 9 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the way most people do yoga, and there's no real yoga in America anyway. So Tantra is a way of life. Sacred sex has to be a way of life. A sacred sexual relationship, sacred union has to be a way of life. It's not just something that you do at a certain time or in a certain place. And at first it may be, once you're getting really integrating this into your life and your experience and your relationship. But once you kind of get a hang of that, you realize, wow, this might be the only life for me, is to live from my sacral and to live from my heart. And suddenly it makes all kinds of decisions much easier. And then every place you are, whether it's a hotel room or your sacred space, it's sacred union no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. If I look at my entire life, when I went back and looked at my entire life, and I even went back to as like a 5-year-old, like I could be watching a movie or a show, and there was a certain something that happened. It wasn't sexual. It was that same, it's like I visualize like the roots, like a cauldron that's boiling, and it starts to inflame, and but even like if I look at sports, or if I look at my early business career, this was a sexual expression. This was a transformation or an alchemization of what this feeling was. So as we all went on our journeys, and for me, I went into these deeply embedded patterns that were created by the traumas and by the conditions and by the bullshit, and you know what I mean? And there's so many people I think this happened to, ramping up to 2012, give or take, right? And then of course coming out of it and then getting into that space because I chose a male body with a masculine dominant energy.
Mm-hmm.
Was that whole part of your dick is gone, your erection's gone, you don't know what to do. I said to her many times, I don't know what to do. I honestly don't know what to do. Half the time I shared it with her, and half the time I went at it alone. I went on a walk and I said, WTF, like what? And surrender and surrender and surrender. And then just like everything else, just when you think it's gone or it is gone because you've surrendered,
Yes.
boom, it comes in and you're like, holy, it's like riding a wild horse or a bull. You just start hanging on going, holy shit, where's this going? But yeah, it's and I like that you said too, the word lifestyle. That part of it, Morgan talked a lot about embodying things. She said, "Oh, you're when we first met, you're connected up there, and you're not embodying anything." I'm like, bullshit. I got this. I started Soulogy, and I'm like, but it was all that false masculine. You know what I mean? And so when I started to really understand that, I started to really gain a higher respect for the human aspect, because the human aspect's here front and center. If it's not an equal representative at the round table of spirituality in terms of our oversoul, it might be the priority, because why the hell would we be conscious here 99%?
And it's beautiful.
Absolutely.
This is one of the things that when I do my show Sacred Sex with Trish is it's like I'm stuck writing this middle passage between the 3D community, which is a lot of my followers, and I like being a way shower for. I figured that I'm in the trenches. I am boots on the ground in the trenches, trying to help raise the consciousness of. I call them muggles. I hope that's not offensive. The people who are not awake yet or who are in the process of awakening. And so I'm like the way shower for them. And what I try to do is I try to show them how bringing the sacred into their sexuality and their sacred, their sex is so beautiful and wonderful. And then the other side of this middle passage is the spiritual community that still thinks sex is bad, sex is dirty, the same way they view money. That's why it's love, sex, and money alchemy, is that to understand that it's all beautiful and wonderful, because it's all just an expression in the physical as we are. And if you can't love your humanness, you're actually missing a big part of why we're here. And that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to love everything that humans do, although once you get a little bit, I guess, more advanced, that's a judgment, but more advanced in your consciousness, you get to that point of unconditional love of all things and all people and all actions, which is really tough. And from the spiritual side of things, some people are still thinking that being spiritual is like on a pedestal. They're on their high horse with being spiritual. And
I think that's getting leveled off now.
Well, I hope so. That's the kind of work that we're here to do, is to understand that sex is absolutely integral to spirit. Because the word spirit, if I can go word nerd again, the word spirit comes from the Latin spirare, which means to breathe. So spirit is not, some dude with a gray beard, on a throne on a cloud. That's what we were all taught, right? Spirit is, that's why pranayama, taking in your breath, the a union of breath with the body, is that every time you inhale, you're taking in spirit, right? And so you are spirit in the physical. And so when you can kind of put that together, it's like, well, they made our bodies, and our bodies are incredible. And there are aspects of our bodies that are absolutely designed for sexual arousal and sexual pleasure, and they have no other function.
That's right.
So if that's not just the clit, that's also the anus. There are nerves around the anus and within the anal structure that are absolutely dormant until you reach a certain level of sexual arousal, which means obviously anal play is totally spiritual and groovy because those nerves exist, so your body is designed for pleasure. And just as we as spiritual people know we are designed to have a spiritual life, we are also designed to have a sexually fulfilling life. And for most of us, once we've healed our shit and we know that catalyst and karmic relationships just aren't going to get it for us, and the fuck buddy relationships are not going to get it for us, that we can move into our sacred unions, which will bring us that incredible sacred sex and sacred fucking and sacred sex experiences that we're all pining for and looking for and wanting. And we could realize that they're actually already all here. Your ability to have these amazing orgasms, it's already within you, because again, you're designed for pleasure. And so when you realize that you're designed for pleasure and all of this already exists within you, that's that sacred union within first, which is crucial for sacred with union with outside of you anyway.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I should share what I just received, but I won't.
Do it. Do it. What?
It's just funny. Morgan sent me something. Well, she's an ET. I never even knew about galactic telemetry. She sent me a cartoon of an ET straddling a human. So yeah, what you were talking about too. And I really love what you said about the masculine, which is primarily the male form. It actually involves all of us, but I mean, because of the way things are laid out, it's typically aligned with the male form, is the one that's going to deconstruct the patriarch. And if I look at, and I've told her for 2 years, I want to help the men, because I know I'm onto something, right? Like I know I'm on the front end of it.
Yeah.
But if I look back today, by way of this conversation, at my well, it would have to be, on a superficial level, my sexual journey, my sexual awareness, deconstruction, reconstruction, whatever you want to call it. It was, and there's still some work to be done. I have to say, and it's just my opinion, not much, but we know that once you break through to the other side, it all starts over again anyway. But my point.
More portals.
My point is that it was a deconstruction of the patriarch. It was a deconstruction of the patriarchal template. You might call it my own personal matrix, which because of my partner involved her too. So that's another thing that I have found, and I haven't had the ability, and I'm like you, I'm a novice etymologist. I love words. I've written for my whole life. But one of the other things I've noticed is as I expand, I notice, and again, the four, you have the divine feminine, the human feminine, right? But as I, expand, which is evidenced and characterized by the integration of my human male and my divine male, I have a greater perspective. I look over there and I actually see what seemed to be like almost a simultaneous kind of thing going on, right, with her. And I can't explain it, but I know one thing: it starts with her. I pick it up, then I seem to get to a certain point, And I don't think it's happening. I think that's still the order. But by the time I look over there, I can actually see it because I have a new set of lenses. But it's quite interesting. It's almost like in fact, when we met, one of the things that I said to myself, and I didn't know she had said to herself, but I had said to myself, you know how you have those knowings, right? And actually, this is before I met her. Yeah, it was before I met her, and I thought to myself, knowing it was that voice that said, "When you meet her, you will be healed."
Mm.
And damn it, that ain't exactly what happened. And I'm talking right down to the moment. I mean, and I think that was pretty much what she was feeling too. But this is something that I've heard other people say, you know, which I think is important too, because so many people, like if we do a video or, you know, she puts up a post about sacred sexuality and describes it the way she does, people are like, oh my God, there'll be like 600 comments. And a big part of it is I hope it happens to me. What can I do to bring it to me? And one of the things that that I know we experienced, and that she's brought it up before, is in terms of that, you know, the letting go, the celibacy, the sacredness of where you lay, so to speak. You know, I mean, it's not a game. And I still, to this day, you know, I'll probably say in the last week, I've probably done it twice. Something will pop in my head. It might be an encounter or a person, and I'll think, did I do that one already? And then I go into that space. Let's say, I'm giving you all your soul aspects back. I'm taking mine back. I love you. Boom, I'm out of here. You know, I mean, it's deep, man. How this stuff is influenced us.
Yeah, and most people who are at least new to this journey, they are still looking for some fulfillment in distractions. And that could be porn, it could be vibrators. I highly recommend stop porn and stop vibrators. Stop looking for things outside of you to give you the pleasure and the fulfillment that actually already exist from within you, because the kinds of experiences that your commenters on those posts say they want, they're probably still addicted to their porn and or their vibrators or something outside of them. That's not to say you can't use an aid, because whether it's the vagina or the anus, sometimes those angles are a little hard to get to. But what I'm saying is that if you can't experience physical sexual pleasure just by yourself with your hands, or if you haven't yet learned how to have the spontaneous orgasms, etc., that this is a great time to start that path, because everything is available to you.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is available to you in the physical and in the non-physical, but you have to start somewhere. And I love what you say about calling back your soul fragments and giving people their soul fragments. This is especially important for karmic relationships. I actually just realized a few days ago that I still had a soul contract between me and my ex-husband. I'm like, what the flag? No, we're canceling that shit right now.
That's the front door.
Right, exactly. And so it's about when you step back from all of this, when you're no longer into all of the reality TV shows and The Bachelor and The Bachelorette and this kind of thing and the Kardashians or whatever trash. Anyway, so when you're not into all of that, and when you're not into the porn as a surrogate for a partner, that kind of thing. And again, I think erotica is beautiful. And when I say porn, I'm talking about the stuff that's like hardcore and rough.
You mentioned that.
Yeah. But that you can, when you're able to just step back, and this is what brahmacharya or sacred celibacy allows you to do. It really allows you to get to know yourself, and it allows you to get to know all of the places where you have blocks and where you have programming and where you have contracts, and it gives you that time and space to just kind of say, okay, I want to clear and heal all of this so that when I am ready, and when that person, when I am ready, that person will show up, kind of like, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, that when you're ready, really ready and healed and cleared, that's when your divine partner will show up, unless of course you have contracts or agreements to where y'all need to do the healing together, or you need a karmic or a catalyst to help you heal.
Yeah. Yeah, you just made me think of something else. Oh, so I remember very clearly, really through the, um, you know, what, the demasculation, the etheric castration, the period, the loss of the libido, the manhood, the erection, which was the predominant, occurrence through several months. After we'd already hit the first episodes of the mind-blowing Sacred Sexuality and 200 female orgasms on the right leg, and this period came, and but I remember one of the pluses from the human perspective, who was taking a beating, was a heightened ability to communicate with my body. So I learned so many things. I tried to override my body many times, which made me realize that I had overridden my body, which is a part of the consciousness that I am. It's not me, but it is, again, another one. We think of multidimensional aspects, but we don't always think about multidimensional aspects in relation just to the human aspects. The human aspect by itself has all these multifaceted, right? But one of the things that it would, like I learned that my penis was,
which is beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's fucking beautiful.
But this right here, what you're saying, I just want to interject this, is that did you have that disconnect from your sexual arousal, your sexual process, because you're having a different relationship with your sexual organs? Because men are told your penis is ugly, your testicles are weird and hairy and gross, and and all of that's just ugly, and it's called your junk. And the culture is like, oh yeah, that's my junk, or don't mess with my junk. It's like, it's not junk, it's beautiful. At least call it family jewels. At least it's something that you actually prize. It's something that you think highly of. But when men are going through this transition from regular 3D sex to wanting or even experiencing little glimpses of sacred sex, they're having to create a different relationship with their genitals, specifically their body, totally, because they feel like their body's betraying them. Their body's just like, what are you doing? What are you not doing? And why? why are you betraying me? Why? Come on, general and privates, we gotta go. we gotta.
So the answer is yes.
If it's not a heck yes, it's a heck no. Yeah.
No, the answer, no, because it was, well, when I say, okay, so let's just say when, and I think this would probably speak to a lot of the men, but when you start to have sexual encounters, let's say, as a teenager, there is a purity. There's at least back in the day, I don't know how it goes now. I had to ask for my 6 kids, but I would think
they see porn when they're 8 and 9 on their parents' phones.
Now I know that's I'm with you. My attraction from the early part of my sexual development was erotica. I love it, and I still would love it to this day. Anne Rice wrote some great erotica, from New Orleans. That type of stuff, right? Not the, bump and grind shit. But anyway, what I was trying to say is, back in the day, there was an element of purity because it's first love. It's like and then I realized about 3 years into it, I had like 3 relationships over like 4 or 5 years, like 13 through 17. I started to realize, oh, dude, there's a pattern here. The pattern is it starts out great, and then you end up realizing you're in love with the sex, not with her, right? So this whole disconnect began, and the service to the penis, right, became, the identification with the masculinity or lack thereof, right? So then this period, and I had some self-imposed celibacy periods in my 20s, in my late teens, and there was some great results. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but what I'm getting at is, when this started happening a few years ago with Morgan, I started to hear my body. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. you have a voice here, like, yeah, don't do that, don't do that. And I do it anyway. And I'd be like, I told you not to do that. So back to what you were saying a minute ago, did I lose my method or my yes? Even if I went to go masturbate, even if I'm thinking about Morgan, which was the only way I could do it anyway, wasn't going to happen. There was a period of time it was not going to happen. You need to shut up and listen and learn, right? So one of the things I found out, because there was a lot of pain, there was physical pain in my balls, in my penis.
Oh no!
And it was not cool.
Blue balls.
Yes, I mean it was like talking to me, you screaming at me, right? But what I started to understand is how I touch myself. And I'm not talking about sexual arousal. I'm talking about how do you treat yourself? Like how do you soak down? How do you and I started to realize that although that was a focal point kind of in a positive, powerful way at times, it'd been a long effing time, and now that was being treated like the redheaded stepchild. Right? I mean, it was so subtle and so second nature. I started to realize from an energetic standpoint the effect I was having on myself. So if you break it down to biology or science or whatever, yeah, we're energetic beings. Am I affecting my circulation when you get down to the literal aspect of it? Yeah. But like everything else, I started to be able to develop a relationship on an energetic standpoint, and that was huge. And
it also includes the self-talk. Yeah. Especially for women, when you look in the mirror, what's the first thought that runs through your head when you look in the mirror and you see yourself naked? It's like, damn, I'm fat, or God, I can't believe I look like this after having 3 kids. It's like that affects you, because words are things, thoughts are things, words have power, thoughts have power. And so, and men too, it's like, oh, I need to be more muscular. Oh, I gotta suck my spare tire and have some abs. But that self-talk, you remember way back when we first started having this conversation 3 years ago. I'm kidding. When we first started talking, it's that what I was, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm ready. I got a glass of water right here. Is that the idea of creating the false traumas and the false issues that create the self-sabotage. Remember? And that's exactly what you're talking about, is that when your mind and ego were trying to keep those false constructs going, and your body is like, dude, wake up. Come on. Your spirit's like, dude, wake up. It's like your spirit and your body are now like, they're teaming up against you. It's like, wait a minute. I thought I was driving this train. Yeah.
It's like the heart, mind. And then the last part was the lower chakras, right? I mean, so like I can remember literally, having this conversion, and this wasn't too long ago. So there's levels, like there is with everything, but this realignment with that part of my energetic field. So
I call it integration in my work. I call it integration.
So it was. On the surface, it looks like I'm talking about my bits, right? But it's not. It's actually, and this is what I would do, I would pull up myself, my energetic body, which is this, you have the silhouette of my body, and I would look at the field of it, and scan it. And I'd see this dark mass, right? Which was affecting my root, my sacral, and even my solar. And I started to work with that. But through all that, once I started to convert and transform, there's obvious differences in my physicality. Now, I worked with other things that involved, like I might work with my circulation, or I might work with trauma, or I might work with just different things. But in terms of my body itself, talking to my body, this part of the journey was the most important. It was the icing on the cake. It was the cherry on top, It was the part where I really brought, to use your word, kind of a uniform integration that I had either by, force or flow developed with different parts of my energetic field. But this was the last part.
Yeah.
This was the part that, and so that's where when you set me off in the beginning, you were talking about I said, wow, this just kind of went all fell into place. I realize now, as I'm having this conversation, what's happening to me now, which means that it's not just me, because as the individual goes, so goes the collective. And like you were talking about what a lot of men are coming into, what I'm starting to understand is I got chills running up and down my body right now, and my roots on fire.
Yes.
Is that what I'm realizing is that there's not a way. There is a trajectory, and my job, our jobs on all aspects of this expansion is to find the new way, is to build the new way off the old Akasha, is to step into that unknown, which to me is the womb of the holy darkness of the great mother. This is where we create universes, and that's the last thing I wanted to and I kept wanting to bring it up that you hadn't brought up and get your take on it. You did mention it a little bit, but these encounters, and again, these encounters are perpetual in a relationship, so whether it's clothes off or walking down the street with your hands together, these encounters, these relationships create a new field of new creation. It's made in the image times two, right? And that's the great thing. Morgan many times, and me a few times, sees golden particles, golden liquid, golden beings, and they say, one way or the other, where do you want to send this? Sometimes we'll say, let's send it to the relationship. Let's send it to Soulogy. But it's a creative force that is
a golden sparkly light.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, I saw it last night. When her and I were sitting down here in the garage right before we went upstairs. I think she went upstairs to go to the loo and brush her teeth, and I was sitting there and I saw it. I saw it come in, and I've seen that happen probably 10 times since I rewoke in 2011. Like at very, very important points. So I'm a little excited about that, and thank you for reminding me, because I forgot all about it. Yeah. Wow, what a 2 hours, man.
I can go for another hour. You want to do it?
Let's see, what do I got? I got an hour and 10 minutes till the next one. So
you may want a bathroom break, but
no, I'm gonna go put a diaper on. That's what I've been doing now. I just wear a diaper everywhere I go. But another thing I noticed about this show, which is, I got the best job in the world. I got the best fucking job in the universe. What am I talking about? And I got the best partner, and I got the best life. I mean, this is happening to everybody, I think. But is I get to see somehow or another, and I think it's through her connection, or the Soulogy itself as a consciousness. It's a representative of the third energy we've created. This has been told to us. We also know this. I mean, this is not to prove anything, but I'm just saying this is kind of the field, is that there's a natural symmetry of a parallel of the micro and the macro. This is what's available. This conversation is a conversation that's needed, that I wanted to have, and not even know what the hell it was. I talked to this Morgan about this stuff. I had a few guests, but to be able to go into this subject candidly, and also not just with the human ears and the human eyes and the human senses, but also our multidimensional. This is a multidimensional conversation that the human is being honored and revered and respected, and all this stuff, which again at the core was a sexual oppression, was a sexual deviation, a distortion. It wasn't junk. It's being honored too.
Yeah.
All of our traumas sexually are being honored too. And I think that's the real important part, because
But this is exactly why it was suppressed, is because orgasm is a direct connection to spirit, which is who you are, but it's a direct connection to everything. I remember my first cosmic orgasm. I wrote about it on my blog on 11/29/2011. So 11/29/11.
11/29/2011.
Which of course, which is 11 too, right? So yeah, 11/29/11.
So what
And
happened?
And well, what happened is that when I got into that zone of this orgasm, because I knew something, it was so powerful. I knew it was like whatever I was going to experience was going to be really powerful. And so I actually stopped 3 different times because I had this fear that this was so powerful it was going to kill me, and I didn't want the police, finding me in my bed with the dildo sticking out of my vagina. It's like, no, okay, I got to stop. This is going to kill me. And then the third time I was like, I don't care. Kill me. I don't care. I know this is powerful and I want to experience whatever this is. For all of the asshole bullshit experiences of my life, the sexual abuse in my life, the physical abuse by my mother, because of the Catholic Church, I deserve pleasure. And so if I die this way, then damn it, let's do it. And so when I just allowed myself to go for it, and I experienced that, I went off into experiences. It felt like my body exploded into a billion pieces, and just, they went to the extent of the universe. I could feel my arms stretching out like Inspector Gadget. My arms just went reaching and extending until I could feel infinity with my fingertips. It was the most incredible, and that's just was the beginning of it. When I came down from that, I burst into tears, and I had these full body convulsion, not just orgasms, but convulsive crying at such a deep level, because some part of me knew this is what I should have been experiencing this whole time. This is what is available to me. And so, of course, every orgasm after that is compared to that, right? But I try to allow every orgasm to be its own little universe, its own little entity. But just that idea that of what is possible and what is available to you, and I was doing this just to have better orgasms, and along the way healed my sexual trauma, my sexual woundings. What I didn't realize is that it was a process of my body up leveling to where I was going spiritually. It was like the human and the, my higher self, and, coming together and finally saying, okay, you're awake now. Good. Now we can get to work, and so it was pivotal, that experience for me and and then years of integration, and, and it's just a very important conversation to have, just like you're saying.
Well, and I think, and you mentioned this earlier, is my mic breaking up?
Nope, I hear you fine.
The perception of the body. So whether it's a part of the body, like I was talking about, or the body itself, it's such a huge thing, I remember several weeks ago, maybe 3 months ago, 4 months ago, in our daily lifestyle, that Morgan and I have, talking about these things and such, she said, and she even wrote a post or two about it, where the body is the last thing to come into alignment as a consciousness that just happens to have all this density. It really resonated with me. And I really feel like that's true. A lot of people have talked about being able to communicate with their body more and so on over the last few months on the show and otherwise, but this is even deeper. Like if I think about, and everything you say is true, I've always been tall. Well, but I've always been tall and lanky. Now I got a little gut on me from time to time, depending on how much I'm eating. It's either a big gut or a medium one, and I'm working on it. But there's not this debilitation frequency. There's not this tearing down. There's not this judgment. I didn't have to stand in front of a mirror and go, oh, I love you, I love you, I love you, naked, oh yeah, you got bird legs, you're, whatever. I'm okay. Like something has happened. Like you said, okay, I went to go find myself a way to reach a higher orgasmic level. And on the way I healed myself. So in other words, I'm seeing evidence of it. If I think about Morgan, I understand what you said earlier about how women look at themselves and men do it too and all that. But I've never seen anything like this creature. Like there's, you know, we were watching TV the other night, and she had her bare foot up on the table, and I said, "Damn, I love your feet." And she's like, "Do you have a foot fetish?" I'm like, "No," but
I had that conversation with my twin
but you know,
recently.
what I'm getting at is there's something about, you know, you think anyone that's had apparitions, you know, material, and we've had them. I've had them individually with her. Uh, so there's a part of me that would go, okay, I'm going to see my partner or myself differently, and it's going to have, you know, ramifications in my physical experience. And it doesn't happen that way. This, for me, this energy is energy, and it doesn't apply to our experience or visible light spectrum. If, for instance, I'm in bed at night, many times our room is blacked out, and
Yeah.
by the way, we have a red lamp and a red
Very
chair,
good.
ottoman. She's very good, believe me. She's so in tune. But so what will happen is I'll look at her, and I can actually see her energy body.
Mm.
And sometimes it has two heads, and sometimes it has this, and sometimes it sits up, and sometimes, but I can actually see her, and it's like the communication is one of revelation and epiphany. It's not like, okay, go do this, connect the dots, and this will happen. It's more like, as I have gotten further into this, the validation, the communication, the realization happens all at one time, and it happens through higher sensitivity experience. You know, so it's a great subject. I think we should collaborate more on it. If you're open to it, you know, I talk to Morgan, and maybe we can do something every few weeks. Or,
Oh,
but I
that'd
think
be cool. Can I say something about the body? Because especially for twin flames, especially divine feminines who are older than their masculine, but a lot of star seeds experience this as well, is that we weren't necessarily supposed to be incarnated right now. A lot of us jumped in. We jumped in and said, hey, Earth needs us, you know, Earth School needs us. The time is now. We've got to be born now. So, hey, can I take your body? And so if you have had a life where you have just not resonated with your body, it could very well be because, you know, you're not supposed to be in this body. Maybe that's also probably why you may not have gotten along with your family, or your family never understood you. You're not part of their soul family. Your family, they're their soul tribe. Right. And so a big part of the sexual healing is, it really is about making connections of love and non-judgment and non-expectation, you know, with your body, and to just understand that your body is doing so much work, just being your vehicle on a 24/7 basis. And then it does all the things that we ask it to do, you know, whether it's work or taking out the dog or building that cabin in the woods or, you know, sex. And hey, yeah, I need an erection for 4 hours. Sorry, buddy, that's not going to happen. You know.
You can't. Yeah,
it's that this body is and for me, I'll speak for myself. I'm not supposed to be in. This is not. I jumped in a lifetime way before I was supposed to come back, and but you know, we answered the call, and so we're here. And so part of this journey is asking a body that wasn't meant to be ours to up level to our journey. That's a fucking mind gasm right there, you know. And so take it easy with yourself.
Yeah. And then there's a certain element of it's all happening anyway.
Heck yeah.
And I resonate with, you know, what you're saying about people coming early. I mean, I see it in others. I know from my own relationship with the earth that, you know, I was here from the get-go for whatever reason. But I've seen that. And I think that there's a part of what's happening, and maybe it's because we passed the tipping point or we did enough work or whatever, but where there's a natural thing taking over now, like a realization, I'm okay with my body. Like I was just discussing, I didn't go out and seek that. I didn't have this, abhorrent relationship. It was just with my stuff, and that was unconscious. I didn't even know it, but I think there's something happening. And along those lines, maybe one of the things we could talk about the next time is regeneration, the fountain of youth, the potential of the transformation as it affects the physical body. Because the way I kind of see the universe, people talk about an equal energy exchange. When you're dealing with the universe, that is what goes around comes around. That is cause and effect. You know what I mean? That is the golden rule. And so, like what you're making me think of in terms of what you were saying about yourself and other people coming early and entering a vehicle that they didn't actually choose, is the reciprocation from the universe. Okay, well, you did this, job well done. Now let's convert, right? That's why when people talk about are they going to bring med beds? And I'm like, well, wait a minute. The way I get it, the technology is us. We're the med bed. Like, and I really feel like that so that the Trinity frequency, which is represented at least in one way by sacred union, which we all have in common, the marriage inside, and then that golden child energy that completes it, is the vehicle, is the base component in the formula for transformation going into a new ground, which is the conversion of a dense physical matter that is spirit, and converting it. I think this is one of the passes through the sacred sexuality that you are so well versed in.
Well, sacred sex isn't, if you think of, okay, this journey is so hard and it's so dense and whatever, just think of orgasm as your shortcut. Sacred sex is the tool, but orgasm is the shortcut. And when you are comfortable thinking of yourself as a god or goddess, or god and goddess, in union within yourself here, in union in the physical within yourself already, and then you're mirroring that with a partner, then suddenly this, it seems a little easier, like, oh wait, a shortcut, like in the church, the shortcuts were buying indulgences and buying your salvation. Well, for us to understand that your body is designed to give you the shortcut to all of the answers you could ever possibly want, but we get stuck through the mind and the ego and our, the indoctrinations and the experiences, people, places, things, situations, events, and traumas outside of us that are still trying to control us. That's why we keep having these dark nights of the souls and the tower moments, et cetera, is to get back to who we really are. And who we really are is spirit in the physical, and our physical vehicle is designed for pleasure. Use that, ride that pleasure all the way to awakening, because it is your shortcut. It's like the wormhole to bliss and pleasure and an all-knowing experience without the drugs.
Yeah, I was telling Morgan the other night, I was watching it's typically something she would see before I would ever see it, if I see it. She's got different clairs than me, but I saw her higher selves. It wasn't the first time, but man, they were getting down. And they were, and I was like,
my twin and I, we're having sex all the time in the ash,
I think we pretty much do too, from what she said and from what I picked up on.
And we call it sex. What it is just, it's the merging back from the two back into the one, as we are as twin flames, right? And so for us here in the physical, the physical sex is just the best way we can do it here is that have that merging. It's just that if you're having sex, hey, do it. Have as much empty sex as you want, because eventually you'll get tired of it. Your body will get tired of it. Your spirit, your heart will get tired of it. Free will, you get to do what you want, right? Free will universe. But it's empty. At the end of the day, it's empty. So take that space and take that time to have some brahmacharya. Let the universe be your teacher rather than all of these social, cultural, and religious programs, matrices that you were raised in. You learn to listen to yourself. And then you get on the orgasm train like, oh, this is a shortcut. And I'm going to have all the enlightenment and pleasure to boot. And then you start to really love being here, because most of us didn't like being here. For most of our lives, even though I love the earth and I've always been in touch with nature and et cetera, I didn't like being here so much, But you really start to come to a level of peace. And I think that's part of, again, the integration aspect of all of this, is that you come to a level of peace of being here and soul mission and all of that. And that it all gets to be pleasurable. It all gets to be abundant. That is connecting the dots between love, sex, and money, is that this is all your birthright and it's all available to you. Are you willing to do your healing and clear your crap? That, which is what we came here to do. Like, we have assignments. We came here. This is our mission, right? And then the bonus cherry on top to all of that is, woohoo, it could be fun when you let it be fun.
Yeah, I think that's an indicator. That's a key, if not the key indicator, is regardless of your story or station, there is a commonality, a place of presence that we all are, and certainly can connect to innately, the bottom
that is
line,
really served when you stop telling the old stories too.
exactly.
When you stop living by those old narratives that were usually forced upon you, or again your self-sabotage stories
or convictions, which can turn into certain convictions, which even are developed, or stances that are developed post awakening. Like, could be something like, I am, when I came in the door, Jesus came in and he said, you're my son. And I'm like, human went, so in other words, I didn't attach to it. You know what I mean? I didn't make it an absolute. And I've heard a lot of stories that are similar over the years. It could be something like that. It could be a certain stance towards whatever, but they're all being ripped down. And there's that part of us that I was speaking about that really is the key indicator. And in that key indicator, if you can sustain it, which we seem to be doing for longer and longer periods of time, in that is what I consider like the opposite of Pandora's box. It's like, for every degree of darkness that we've experienced and been privy to, there's an equal degree or greater level of what we call light.
1,000 times more. Yeah.
And that's the anti-aging, the self-healing, the everything in dream state.
I love my dreams. Oh my God. That's where I get most of my information, is through dreams. Yeah. So if I ever fall asleep on a show, don't be offended. I'm just, I'm getting information.
Well, if I ever start having the, female orgasms on my right leg.
Whoo, I have those up my left leg. Yeah. And last night, I was trying to go to sleep, and I would have this sudden with my crown, and then I would feel an electric shock out my right foot. And so it was like, as soon as it came in here, it was out my right foot. And I was just like, oh, what is my masculine going through right now? Because that's the masculine side, right? And I was just like, and I'm starting to have all these leg twitches because it feels like the bottom of my foot was being electrocuted. And it was just like shock, over shock, and whatever.
That happens to me.
Yeah. So I get it. And I'm just like, woo, okay.
All right. So we didn't get to talk about your relationship. We didn't get to talk about why the hell are you living in Mississippi, although you're on the coast.
I'm from Mississippi. I love Mississippi, sir. And I'm here to be the light. I'm here to be the light right here.
Well, only because I've not met like people in such an environment such as that. Some here and there. Obviously, I'm in a small town in Arkansas, and I could say the same thing about myself. But
you're there to be the light around Walmart. I mean,
well,
yeah.
But I'm feeling the call, man. I'm feeling movement.
Come on down to the coast, babe. You and Morgan, come on down.
Yeah, I'm in Corpus Christi, Texas, so I'm at that end of the Gulf, and I for years had offices all the way up through the Panhandle of Florida. So that whole coast, I spent a lot of time in Jackson, a lot of time in Southern Alabama, and
that's how you know Jackson. Yeah. The Mississippi Gulf Coast is it's the landmass between New Orleans and Mobile. Yeah, but it's beautiful and wonderful, and absolutely come on down.
I mean, there's some beautiful places. In fact, I was thinking just yesterday, and I didn't mention it to her, but I did mention to her a few days ago. I thought, we should take a trip just for 2-3 days, just to like, for ourselves. And I was actually thinking of New Orleans And then I started to think about, well, we could go down to Gulfport. We could go down, because there's a lot of beautiful, beautiful beaches down there. And they're
Yeah.
not overtrodden with like a lot of places that you go.
Yeah, and
It's
Ocean Springs is if you know where Gulfport is, there's Biloxi, and then there's a bay, and then Ocean Springs. So I'm just across the bay from Biloxi.
Yeah, I know exactly where that is.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. Biloxi's got that bridge that's like 4 miles long, man.
It is the Ocean Springs Bridge, sir, and it's 1.8 miles.
Is that what it is? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's well after Katrina smashed it to smithereens, they rebuilt it and they built it up higher so they wouldn't have to raise the drawbridge as much for the boats that are coming through. But yeah, on this side we call it the Ocean Springs Bridge. Biloxi calls it the Biloxi Bridge.
Okay, I got you. Right on.
I'm just being cantankerous,
That's okay. We can do that. Us Southern people can do that.
Right? Yeah.
So I want to thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed it. I don't usually go 2 hours. I don't usually go an hour and a half, but you just have to let it flow, right? 2
Absolutely.
hours. Oh, wow.
And thank you, Morgan, for reaching out to me. I'm just grateful anytime I can share my work and be a part of the service that we're all here to do.
Yeah. Well, we definitely should collaborate again, and maybe we can even Yeah, we'll talk about it later because we start talking. It'll be another hour, and then I'll be.
We'll be, yeah, I know. It's like we're on the porch, right? On the porch. And
that's the way. That's the way.
Rocking chairs.
That's the way it's supposed to be to me. It should be a conversation, Always.
That's the way I run my talk shows too. Is that it's conversations, just rather than just I ask a question, you answer. I ask a question, you answer.
I'm not into that at all. Yeah.
That would not work for us.
We had David Icke on last week, which was a great honor, and I was really got a tickle because I asked the first question, and he started talking. Then he goes, "I didn't know it was going to be about this. This is what I want to talk about." But it was conversation oriented. It wasn't, what do you think of the reptilians, and what do you think of this? And it wasn't like that. It was a conversation. So. Yeah,
and that's what the world needs is more conversations because otherwise people just make up their minds too quickly. And the big issues that we need to solve and heal in the world and our country and the world and our awareness, it takes sitting down and discussing and coming together and seeing our similarities and honoring our differences. That is the way of the future in terms of healing the shit.
Well, and I think through that process, I'm noticing, like I said earlier, that the field is different. I think since the middle of last year, so that not that processes and modalities and techniques are going to go away, but there's something different going on where when something comes into your awareness, the transformation sometimes is almost immediate.
Instantaneous manifestation and transformation. Absolutely.
That's a big, and I think a lot of that comes, we think that it's going to be through these lightning bolts to fly down and we catch them with our hand, but it's actually these exchanges where the human aspect is fully empowered. I mean,
it's changing everything from relationships to magic. I mean, how you do magic, how you do manifestation. It's changing everything, which is really cool. Yeah.
We'll see you soon. And please reach out to Morgan about what you had talked about, collaborating on your end. And we'll just
yes. Right. Y'all are beautiful. Thank you so much. Y'all take care. And thank you to all the comments. I was reading those as we were talking. It's great.
Yeah, you should, and I should have covered this, but you should maybe a good idea to go to my page on Facebook and then go to Soulogy One Studios on YouTube and put in your information, your links, anything you want to.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
In fact, do you have a website?
Yes, TrishCausey.com. So it's just my name, TrishCausey.com.
All right, I'll put it on all the platforms right now.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Okay, there it goes. It's on all of them. But you still might want to follow up on it, because typically that's what happens. People to come on the show, they get a lot of overtures their way.
Yeah, well, it's being in service first. That's the most important thing. And the people that want to work with me, they're drawn to me great. And this is how I serve most readily mainly through Instagram. I have a Facebook group, and then of course my YouTube, and then the courses and programs that I have, because we're all here to help, and Have a great time doing it. That's what I say. You
That's
know,
right,
ascension
man.
doesn't have to be so damn
No,
awful.
the gods, you know, the way I see it, they drink, smoke, and fuck, and I'm a god, you know, in the skin. I mean, and I said
Right.
that
And that's
with
why we
respect.
do, right? We're in their
Yeah.
image.
Yeah, but I mean it. I don't actually mean it, you know, in a derogatory way. I just want to make that clear. Everybody, don't send me hate mail, but yeah. Okay, you take care. All blessings to you and
Yeah,
yours, and your
you too.
relationship and your work. And we look forward to collaborating very soon. Thank you
Thank you,
for
thank you, thank
coming
you.
in and honoring us with your presence.